Hey guys, Scott here, and today we're going to talk about the matchmaking changes and the update they just made. They've been talking about doing this for a while, basically implementing like an MMR system or a matchmaking rating system, something more accurate than the rank system that they have now. Because, I mean, as most people can tell you, ranks have always been pretty irrelevant in this game in terms of, measuring skill, and the devs have finally admitted this, which is nice. People always make the counter argument, well, if rank is just a determine it's determined by how much you play the game, right? So ideally you would be better if you play the game more. And yeah, probably. The more experience you have statistically, you're probably going to be better. But the whole point is that just because you say you play at red ranks doesn't mean you're not going against potatoes. And that is, I think, the main counter argument to that. There are the only reason people are able to play like no perk, speed limit, or Leatherface and win 30 games in a row is because the majority of players are just not that good at the game. If you go against a good team of all four very good survivors, you will get shit on almost every single time unless you're like Nurse or Spirit. That's just how the game is. But that almost never happens, so it's not that big of a deal. And this brings up an interesting point of, do we even want a super functional matchmaking system? And I'll go over that at the end. Actually, I'll probably forget because I don't have scripts for these videos. I just sort of do them because I like free talking, but I'll try to remember. But let's go over what they've talked about. So first first thing that I wanted to talk about was basically here they talk about how they're going to have individual killer rankings, which I don't think is a very good idea because most of the skills that you learn in this game are transferable throughout all the killers. I would say there are 2 killers in the game, maybe 3, that actually play so differently that you don't have to learn like looping or map pressure, things like that. I would say like Nurse and Spirit are like the guaranteed ones where you don't even know how to like pallet loop or anything like that because you play a completely separate game, and that's just the nature of how they're played. And for those killers, I'd say fine. That's okay if you have a separate ranking system because they play a totally different game, and that's cool. But for every other killer though, like all the skills you learn, like, learning where survivors spawn, how to pressure the map, when to slug, when to, like, patrol an area, how to run tiles, how to moonwalk, like, all these things that you learn are not things you forget when you switch to a different killer. They're transferable to every killer. I can play Trapper and use no power, and play Myers and use no power, and have the same outcome in both matches. And just because I play Trapper way less, does that mean it's going to match me with rank 20s, basically, and I'm just going to shit on them because it thinks I don't know how to, like, play the game because I haven't played Trapper much? Like, that I think is a huge flaw with having individual killer ranks. I think too much of the game is transferable in terms of skill level, so I'm not sure how that's going to work. I still think with, like, Nurse and Spirit and stuff like that, that's fine. Maybe even, like, Hag, because she plays very differently as well. There are a couple of killers in the game. I will admit, there are a couple of killers that play very differently, and your skills are not that important in terms of, like, transferring between them. But for the most part, most of the killers have skills you will transfer among all of them, and being very good at their power a lot of the time isn't super necessary because you can still do fine just running around and M1ing people. But let's go on further. Here, they basically talk about, how ranks are just not a good measure of skill. They've never been a good measure of skill. It's just a measure of exactly how often that you play the game. That's all rank has ever been. And yes, usually the more you play, the better you are, but it still goes without saying that all it does is measure how much you play. So they're saying that they acknowledge the issue with that, which is good, because that is an issue. And now here's the concerning part. I made a video about this. I made a pretty in-depth video about this. I'll link it in the description, where I go over why an MMR system like this can't work unless you have an incredibly complicated, robust system that accounts for every variable in the game, which I don't think they're going to do. So the thing that they said that worries me is this line right here. We've analyzed over 3 million games during our tests, and the matchmaking system is proving to be extremely accurate at predicting the outcome of matches. And that seems cool, that they have a system that predicts how well a match is going to go. But the problem is that's not what player skill is. That doesn't talk about player skill at all. That talks about the outcome of a match. The outcome of a match has something to do with player skill, but it's not directly related. Like, for example, if an Ebony Mori nurse loads into a map, their system is probably going to analyze, I bet this nurse is going to win. But it doesn't that doesn't analyze skill level. It doesn't analyze the skill of the survivors or the killer. It's a strongest killer in the game using busted shit. It's like the survivors are not going to have much chance against that, no matter how good they are. So in that scenario, it's predicting the outcome of a match. It has nothing to do with predicting the skill of the players in that match. And this is, I think, the main flaw with this, because you can't really predict, you can't, like, analyze the skill level of a player in this game. I will say, for killer, it's a bit easier, because you can measure how many, how quickly they kill people, how much pressure you have on the map, how good you are with using your power, things like that. I'd say killer is a bit more quantifiable in how good you are at that particular killer and how good you are at playing killer in general. Survivor, you can't quantify that skill level. It's fucking impossible. Unless you have like some Google DeepMind AI learning shit, you can't. It's just you cannot. The nature of the game makes it so you can't analyze survivor skill. It's just impossible. For example, you can have, I gave this example in my video, I'll just briefly go over it again. You can have, the system analyzes how long you last in a chase, and it thinks this rank 20 meg that throws down 15 pallets in 2 minutes, but lasts 2 minutes is very good. And then it thinks all of the other players that are all very good at the game that suddenly have no resources to work with, they last way less time, and now suddenly they're bad. The nature of it being asymmetrical and having to rely on other teammates for your direct skill is going to make it so you can't analyze the skill of the survivor. You just can't do it. The only way you'd be able to actually do that is if you had an incredible system that gauged who the killer was, what the killer's power was, what the survivor was, what perks the survivor has, what perks the killer has, the distance between the survivor and the killer, how that killer's power can interact with the chase, the amount of resources in the area, the amount of resources the survivor uses in that individual chase, how much distance they gain before beginning to use those resources, how they link those resources together while minimizing the you can't analyze all that shit. There's no way they made a system that complicated. There's just no fucking way. So you can't analyze the skill of a survivor with an automated system. I can watch somebody, and as a human, I can see, okay, this guy is just getting enough distance after I hit him to just make it to this tile while not using any of the pallets in between us. He knows how to chain the tiles together. He's not just running around the loop. He runs this one once, and when I double back, then he runs to another loop. And there are things that I, as a human, can analyze that, oh, damn, this survivor is good. But it's not something a system can analyze. It's fucking impossible. Unless they actually have a system as complicated as what I just said, which, let's be real, they don't. If they do, I will do a fucking backflip. That would be amazing. I would be, all right, shit, they have an actual matchmaking rating system for this game. But I think we can safely say that's not going to be the case. Based on what they said here, all they're predicting is the outcome of a match. That's not skill. That's just, if you have a huntress with iridescent head, chances are she's going to win. The system is going to predict her winning. But that doesn't mean she's better than a huntress that has no add-ons. It's just, there are too many variables involved here. And it's just not something that you can, analyze with a system like this. And wouldn't you know it, that thing I said I would talk about later, I immediately forgot, and that's okay. But I just wanted to go over the initial thoughts on the fact that they're actually going through with this. I don't think this is going to work. I don't think it's going to be any more accurate. It might be a little bit more accurate than the current system they have now, because the current system they have now is nothing. A little bit more accurate than nothing is still not a functional system. Oh, right, I remembered. The topic was whether or not we even want a functional matchmaking system, because I will say this is an unfortunate truth of the game. The reason your favorite content creators are able to do such wacky builds with, just silly add-on, like Speed Limiter Bubba, stuff like that. The reason I'm able to do Speed Limiter Bubba with 5 totems is not because I'm just so incredible at the game. It's because most players are just not that good at the game. All it takes is a single weak link in any game. A single weak link, and you win. That's all you need. If you have one weak link, because if you can get one player out of the match while 4 gens are still up, you can't. You can't lose a 3v1 with 4 gens up. I've tried. It's impossible. You can fuck around. There's just, the time efficiency gets destroyed for the survivors. So all it takes is one weak link. And with, the current rank system, there is almost always a weak link. Almost every single time. Even in Survive with Friends, not all of their friends are good at the game. there is almost always a weak link. But if we do somehow in a fairy tale land have a perfect matchmaking system where every survivor is as good as they should be at that rank for, for like what I'm going against, they're all of the same level. There are no weak links. I can pretty much only play like Huntress, Spirit, Oni, Billy, and Nurse, and like Deathslinger. And like, other than that, like half the killers suddenly become not a viable choice anymore. Every killer in this game is viable by virtue of the fact that there is always a weak link in every match. But if this system works perfectly, again, Fairy Tale Land, it's not going to, but if it did, that would void like half the killers in the game. So the survivors that got to that rank, I hope you enjoyed going against the same 4 killers over and over again for the rest of your time playing the game, because that's all you'll ever see. And I think that is not a good thing for the game. I think the chaos of who's going to be in a match, the varying skill levels involved, is part of the fun of the game. Because I will get shit on by like, oh my god, everyone in this game is amazing. And then the next game at the same ranks, there'll be a rank 20 meg that just, I say rank 20 in spirit, she's actually rank 1. Doesn't look behind her, just drops pallets immediately. Just the varying levels of skill level is almost part of the fun in this game. But if everyone was of the same skill level and there were no weak links anymore, you're going to have very sweaty killers playing the same 4 killers over and over again, because that's all they're going to be able to win with. Because at that point, it starts not getting to a measure of skill, it just gets to a measure of what the killer can do. Nurse and Spirit and stuff like that can avoid even the best survivors doing the things that they do the best because of how they're designed. If you're just playing, like, I don't know, if you're just playing Myers or something like that, it doesn't matter how good you are to a certain extent. If there are no weak links, you're just not going to win. So I don't even know if I want a functional matchmaking rating system in this game. I like that it's just a casual, what the fuck, clusterfuck game mode. It's just a lot of fun like that. So, luckily, I don't think we'll have to worry about that. I don't think they're going to make this very good. I just think the game is there are too many variables. It's just too hard to do it. So I'm not really worried about that happening. But I am a little concerned with what they think that skill is. If anything, I want them to be transparent. I want them to be transparent on what they are gauging player skill off of. Because if it's just the outcome of a match, that's a complete bullshit system. That's just as bad as what they have right now. I don't think it's that simple, though. I think they have a bit more variables in there. But I need to know, are they accounting for every add-on? Did they make a modifier for every single add-on in the game? Did they make a modifier for every single perk in the game? Did they make a modifier for Survive with Friends? Did they have a modifier for each killer? Like, there are so many things that they have to account for to make a balanced system, and I just want some transparency on that. I just want to know that they're doing that. I don't want them to say, hey, if you play this killer, it modifies your rating by 5% or something like that, because then people will learn that and abuse it to try to get to the best ratings. I just want them to give a general idea that they know what the fuck they're talking about. That's all. I just want to feel like the system is in good hands and they know what makes a good player. That's a good starting point. I still don't think they can succeed because I don't even know how you could even do that. But I think that'd be a good starting point is some transparency on what they're gauging, and then we can just take it from there. So those are my thoughts on the topic. Again, I've already ranted about how MMR can't really work in this game. I'll link that in the video below, but that's about it for now. Thanks for watching, guys. Take it easy. Have a good one.